Hello and welcome to The Truth About Storytelling. This is Tyreen Martinson. I am a poet, podcaster, and author of fantasy, science fiction, poetry, nonfiction, and with more to come. So today I want to talk about how I choose what to work on each month, each week, and each day. As always, this is not a prescriptive podcast. Your writing methodology that you love best is the one that works best for you. I am not trying to say you have to do something that I do, okay? So that's not prescriptive. It's just meant to be an idea and hopefully help if you are like me and you have some similar strengths and similar struggles with the temptation of shiny new ideas seeming to sparkle around every corner. So this episode is for those of you who have those shiny ideas out there all the time. But it's also for anyone else who wants to listen in and kind of see how I choose what I work on each month, each week, and each day. How I kind of make those decisions to move forward with my writing and how I find the strength to do that. So today is an interesting day because I had planned on a different episode that will be coming out next week. I had some stressful things happen this last week. I have a family member with some serious health issues, and that kind of changed up the rhythm of what I was doing. Now, I did know that I needed to take some days off, and so I'd already set that aside. That's something that I know I need to do now and then for specific reasons in my life. And so it kind of comes into this how I choose what to work on each month, each week, and each day. There are simply days that are not going to go to plan, right? That's kind of just part of life. Some days don't go to plan. We have to change things and do something different. So one of the things that I need to do always is to remember to give myself grace and to be flexible. And that's, again, not a prescription, but it's something that I use kind of as a prescription for me. I need to give myself grace and to be flexible in my days just because of the wildness of life and all the different things going on. So again, I do want to talk specifically about how I choose what to work on month by month, week by week, and day by day, especially as someone who has a lot of ideas, a lot of curiosity, and a deep desire to actually finish something. This isn't a productivity system or a rigid planner method. It's more of a rhythm of work that I give myself permission to follow because it relies on my strengths. It also takes into account my limits and the season of life I'm in right now, as I'm caregiving for my parents, working a part-time job, and enjoying some of my family life. So if you are someone who has a lot going on or who is tempted by new projects but also wants meaningful forward motion, hopefully you will find something in this episode to help you. So first up, one of the things that has helped me in this last year is I've really started to learn what my strengths are. And I confirmed a lot of my strengths by taking the Clifton Strengths test. Now, I'm not saying you have to take this test. You can take some time and think about what your strengths are. You probably know what they are already if you give yourself some credit. So think about what your strengths are. Think about what you're good at, what you love to do, what's easy for you, and what you enjoy, and also what drives you. I think those are where we kind of find our strengths. And so I recommend taking some time to do that in a journal or just by thinking about it and daydreaming about it, or however you work through those types of processes. Sometimes people like to go for a walk and think about those things because they need that activity to kind of keep their brain working and processing through those types of ideas. So again, I recommend, again, not prescriptive, but I recommend discovering what some of your strengths are and really thinking about them writing them down and affirming them for yourself. I know, again, that I have found that helpful for me in all that I do and in my writing life particularly. So this last year, I kind of rediscovered and affirmed that I am wired for ideas, connections, strategy, achievement, reflection, learning, and future vision. Those are all Clifton Strengths areas, and those are my top 7. So I lead with ideation, which means ideas are like my superpower. Ideas come easily and sometimes loudly. I see possibilities everywhere, and it can be a gift, but it also can be a distraction if I'm not careful. So thankfully, I also have strategic and connectedness, which means I don't just see ideas, I see how these ideas can relate to each other in projects and how those projects could feed one another and how their themes can kind of create a larger ecosystem. So that really helps me as a writer. And it's interesting because I didn't realize how strategic I was until I started learning more about that strength. And sadly, I think I've doubted my strategic thinking for many years. And I kept looking at what other people were doing and thinking, oh, that's a good strategy over there. And I wasn't trusting my own instincts about what a good strategy would be for my particular type of writing. And the fact that I do have all these different ideas and I don't write just in the same genre all the time. So for me, the strategy of writing all in one genre and writing, book after book that are all fitting within one theme, that's a strategy that doesn't work for me. It might work for someone else who doesn't have ideation as their number one strength, but it doesn't work for me because I have ideation as my number one strength, and I have all these different ideas, and I want to write poetry and fiction and fantasy and science fiction, and I have some ideas for other things. And so you kind of get the idea there. When, for me, for strategy, I need to think about how to connect all of those different ideas into an area or a theme that readers can understand and feel more comfortable with. And I know that I've sat down and thought about those strategies and those connections before. I just didn't trust my own judgment on them. So now that I'm leaning more and more into my strengths, I am trusting my own strategic thinking and the connections that I'm making between my disparate projects. And that's really important to me because my next strength is achiever. Okay, so I love to achieve things. I feel a need to achieve things each day. And I actually, on the hard side of that one is I will feel very frustrated and sometimes down on myself if I don't achieve something every day or a certain number of things every day. And so I keep an achievement list for myself each day. I write down what I have accomplished, and that helps me see what I did and celebrate it and kind of satisfy that achiever need that I have. And I also really like achieving particular projects and finding the through point and the finish point for each of them. And so that's one of the reasons I really like being an indie author, is because I choose the project timeline. I can see how I'm getting each piece done. I can see the finish point, and I really love that finish point. I love that achievement point of the finish line of a finished product. So I really love getting a fresh paperback in the mail that I have finished. So anyhow, you can see how that could work and be very rewarding. But again, if I don't see what I've achieved during a day, it can also be very hard. So again, I try to lean into the strength and not let the negative potential for it go badly for me. A couple of my other strengths are intellection and learner, which means I need time to think, reflect, and understand what I'm doing. I also really love to learn new things and discover new things. I like the idea of being a lifelong learner, and I love to read and, again, learn new things. Finally, my seventh strength is futuristic, which means I'm always imagining where this could all go. And when all those strengths that I have are aligned, I feel not only grounded, but energized and ready for anything and determined. But when those strengths aren't aligned or I'm not paying attention to them, I kind of feel scattered and frustrated. And that's because I think sometimes, even though I believe ideation is an awesome number one strength to have and I love it, it can be really hard when I feel tempted by new projects on a regular basis. So I want to talk a little bit about that next. I'm going to talk about how I use all these strengths to create a month by month, week by week, day by day type plan for myself and how I choose what I'm going to do each day. But first, again, I want to talk about that temptation of the shiny new idea, or all the shiny new ideas that I have when I've playing around with my ideation strength and really feeling it. So the reality is, it's because ideation is one of my strengths. I have ideas all the time, and it can be wonderful. It can also be distracting. So I try to keep my ideas in my journal. I try to keep lists of ideas. I have idea notes on my phone. I have a lot of different places I put ideas. But then once a week on Sunday afternoons, I try to allow myself to have time to play with some of those ideas and just have fun with them, but not move them into the project folder. Okay, and that's a really tough one for me. Sometimes I want to take every single one of my ideas and make it a current project. But the reality is I can't do that. I already have a number of current projects. So I take all those ideas, I play with them, and I give them their own place, if you will. I celebrate them, I enjoy them, and I say, okay, thank you, ideas. I'm going to put you over here now. And I, again, allow myself to play around with them once a week specifically. And sometimes in the evenings, just a little bit for fun. It could be for 5 minutes, it could be for 20 minutes, but usually every evening I spend some time just daydreaming up different ideas for different stories, just again for fun. Not that I'm going to do anything with them, not that they're going to move into my main project files. So that's kind of an important distinction for me that I have to keep, and I have to remind myself why I need to keep it, while at the same time affirming for myself that yes, ideation is an awesome strength, but at the same time, I can't let it derail me because achievement is also one of my strengths, and I really like achieving things. And it's hard to achieve things if I'm scattered into 100 different ideas, okay? I need to pull them into one or two projects at a time, or one or two projects in a month, if you will. So I love my ideation strength, but it takes some constant management to keep it going in the right direction. Now, the awesome part about ideation within a project is I can really get a lot of great ideas going within a singular project and have a lot of fun with those ideas within a singular project. So I think that's where ideation really shines for me as a writer. I have often had people say to me, wow, where'd you come up with all these ideas? This is just wild. This world has this and this and this and this, and this one government is democratic and this other one is not. And you've got all these different places and different creatures, and it's just amazing. In my sci-fi novella series, the Raytana series, which is not fantasy, it is space fantasy, I have some really different creatures, And I've had so many people compliment me on them, and I'm like, that's just, I mean, of course I came up with those ideas, but this, again, within a book, it can be really fun to really expand ideas and play with them. And I feel like in the fantasy world of Aramatir, my strength comes out with ideation in the creatures, the type of magic, and the different kingdoms, the different political systems that are at play. That's where I feel like my strength of ideation really comes to play in those moments in those books in my fantasy world of Aramatir. So again, ideation is great, but when it comes to planning and staying the course for finishing projects, it can be distracting. And I have to put my ideas over in a container. I have to give myself one day a week to just play around with ideas because I really need it. It's like a strength and a need at the same time. That's what I've noticed about most of my strengths. They're a strength, but they're also a need. And so I need to allow them and I need to affirm them. But then I also need to manage them and realize where they fit best within my writing life and within the projects that I want to do and within my planning structures for getting work done. So while I may play with ideas and I may keep all of them in different file folders, those ideas don't automatically get promoted to projects. So with all of those ideas, how in the world do I choose what matters each month, each week, and each day? Well, one of the things I do is I look at the foundation of why I do what I do. I love to write. I love to create stories. And why do I write what I write? I write what I write because I want to create meaningful and entertaining work that readers will hopefully enjoy and also find thought-provoking, because that's the type of book that I like to read, regardless of whether it's poetry or fiction or nonfiction. I like to be entertained and also given bits of theme and meaning and a little bit of thought-provoking material. So that's the type of thing I want to create. And I want to create it because I believe it's important for us to tell stories that foster connection and meaning and inspiration. So anyway, that's the what and the how, the what and the why of what I write. So how in the world do I choose which project matters each month? Well, for one thing, I look at the projects that I have already in play. I have poetry books that I'm working on. I have a fantasy series that I'm working on. I have a science fiction series I'm working on. I know where I want to be by the end of the year with each of those projects. And I know where I want to be in the spring of this year with each of those projects. And so then I kind of look at basically the next 6 months, and then I kind of work backwards to the current month. I know that I want to have a beautiful finalized edition in hardback, paperback, and ebook of my poetry book, To Speak, out in early February. So guess what? January, the most important thing for me to do this month is to make sure that I have a finalized edition in each of those editions of To Speak. So that's my number one priority for my writing time each day. Second priority is I did find a formatting error in Light Reflections, so I am going to be fixing that, not only this month, but this week in particular. And I am creating this podcast, and I want to keep a good, steady rhythm for this podcast. So that's my third priority for the month. And that's going to be a continuing priority throughout the year. Fourth, I need to journal each and every day. It's very important for my health right now, especially as there are different things going on in my life, caregiving for my parents, a part-time job, different family responsibilities and activities. And I really struggle with keeping an emotional, even, and gracious tone in my life if I don't journal every day. So I need to journal because it's a place that I process a lot of my emotion. And I would love to say that my journal is full of just great story ideas, and it does have some of those because, again, I like to play around with ideation. But there's a lot of just simply getting through a lot of emotional processing. So for me, journaling is really about health, and that's a top priority. So those are my main priorities this month. Two of them are ongoing: the podcast and the journaling. Those are ongoing all the time. Those will be all year long. And then specifically for this month, I need to fix the formatting error I found in Light Reflections, the second edition, and I need to finalize the ebook, paperback, and hardback editions of To Speak. So that's ready to go out there in the world in February. Now, there's also another element of that release, and that I did ask for some help with that book release from the Insecure Writers Support Group online. And I think I've asked for help here on the podcast. So if you'd like to help me with the book release of To Speak, please let me know. I will add my email address at the end of this episode. But I am looking for some help with that release in February. And so I'll be setting up pieces for that too this month. So those are the main tasks I have. And I think that's enough, really, when I think about what I need to do this month. Otherwise, with the rest of my life, I need to be very thoughtful about the timing of events in my life, because last week I had extra stuff than I expected, and I may have that again. I don't know for sure. So I have to give myself a certain amount of open-ended time for maybe I'm going to get work done and maybe I am going to be doing something else. So there has to be margin in my life for that type of grace to give myself in the process. So in that vein, I choose what I'm going to work on for the month, and then I choose what I'm going to work on for the week. And I need to do that by asking myself these questions. How much time do I actually have? Not what I ideally have, not if I worked, 24/7 kind of time. Now, what kind of time do I actually have to do work? And the second question is, what else does life require of me this week? That's a big question for me. What's realistic? Not ideal. And it's hard for me to say that because I always want to go for the ideal thing, but I really do need to look at what's realistic for the week. And then after I have that idea for the week, then I plan my days. And each of those days is important, and I try to, again, still give myself some grace here and there, so that way I have some margin in my life just in case things shift around. I need that. And I don't want to overplan, and that's a really big difficult thing for me as someone with a number one strength of ideation. Sometimes I get this idea that I could do all these ideas all at once, and so strategic, realistic planning is really important, and leaving myself margins in the week is really important. If I end up with extra time, I might just allow myself a tiny bit of time on a tempting idea project, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, because it honors my ideation strength without letting it run the show. And it also is just a fun reward for me. So the key is that my main goals still get my best energy. Another reason that I need to leave margin in my life is because I need time to think, to reflect, and to learn. That's not procrastination for me. That's fuel for all I do, and also helps me develop my ideas and my work. And I also have a tendency to future cast. I imagine what could happen if I stay faithful to the work in front of me. However, I have to be careful with that one though, because if I'm stressed or tired, that same futuristic strength can imagine everything going wrong. And when that happens, I need to pull back into the present and ask myself, okay, what's one small thing I can finish today, and how good will that be for the project in its fulfillment? So it helps me to really think through my month, my week, and my day, and to take time to affirm my strengths every day and to give myself time to reflect on things and to hope, to kind of future cast what could happen if everything goes well, and even future cast how good it could be even if only half the things go well, because sometimes I need to do that too. So this is how I choose what to work on. It's not a perfect system. It's not rigid, but I try to move forward with intentionality. So if you're struggling with ideas, responsibilities, and creative work, I hope this gives you permission to slow down, plan from the top down, and trust that consistency matters more than chasing every possibility. So if you'd like to contact me and let me know what you think, I'd love to know how you decide what to work on next. And if you could help me with the release of To Speak, a poetry book in February, I'd love to know that too. My email that you can reach me at is tyrean@tyreanstales.com. TYREAN at TYREANSTALES.com. And I will put a link to my website in the show notes. I believe there's a contact form on there you can find in the About Me section. So you can always contact me that way as well. And I will also put links for Darkblade Forged, because in the original ebook edition, it's only 99 cents right now. And then I also have 3 different book funnels I'm taking part in this month. There's some sales and there's some freebies. You kind of have to look at each one and decide what you want to do, but it's all there and offered up for readers. So thank you for joining me today. This is January 12th, 2026, and I hope you are having a good week and a good year.